Hey beautiful people, this is Kristen. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today I have 4 classics that I have read this month that I wanted to go ahead and give you a little review and see if maybe it was something you were interested in checking out. Although I just recalled that technically one of them I finished the last week in July and then forgot that I read in July. I was trying to honor Jane Austen in July, and then I almost didn't make it. But the last 2 days, I did read Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. This is the last of the kind of 6 main novels that she wrote that I had never read. So I may do a review video of all those 6 and kind of compare them. This one is definitely good though. It is a account of a young woman who is growing up kind of sent away to get her education and society upbringing and all those kind of things. And it has very much the Jane Austen kind of romance triangles where there's misunderstandings and this person likes this person but they don't know this person likes this person, and they have this kind of childhood crush of a man who goes away, and how does that develop as the story goes on. And this is unique in the sense that the Abbey actually has some kind of almost haunted feelings. She keeps on thinking that there's mysterious backgrounds of the house itself or the people within it, and you kind of go down that rabbit trail. Don't want to give any spoilers ever in my reviews, but it is not a huge plot point, but it is something interesting. And I really did like the dynamics, of course, of having the religious aspect in it. That was very interesting. And it's just, if you like Jane Austen, you like that kind of classic Victorian high society, need to be prim and proper and do things and figure out how society is telling us to act, and a nod to romance. And this one, has pretty much a traditional kind of more happy ending overall, although everything doesn't work out perfect, which I actually really do like. So that is kind of my description on that one. I also read Henry James, The Turn of the Screw. I thought when I picked this book up, one of my lovely Penguin cloth-bound classics, that it was all one story, but this is actually the Turn of the Screw is only about 100 pages, and the rest of it is a series of short stories. There were 8 stories, and of the 8, there was only one that I got done with it and went, that wasn't a very good story. But the others were quite interesting, and every single one of them has a ghost, like a literal apparition that is there with a purpose, and haunt or spook or a dead person returned or whatever it is. And I think that's really interesting. And this, if you're looking for something for that coming up for October, to have that kind of Halloween spooky go into the fall vibe, I really, really enjoyed this. It is very similar to the writings of Lovecraft, but I think I like this even more. And it does definitely also have Edgar Allan Poe vibes, but not quite the unique poetic style, but definitely that authentic classic writing style. And yeah, it's not too gory, not too graphic, but definitely ghost stories. That's what I will say about that. And in regard to the Turn of the Screw specifically, it also includes kind of mental illness and grappling with the reality, maybe an unreliable narrator even a little. Highly recommended. I really liked it. Then I also read my second James Joyce. So this is a portrait of the artist as a young man, and I always get that title a little mixed up. This is supposedly his most autobiographical book that he wrote. The first one that I read was The Dubliners, and it is a story of realistic kind of snapshot portraits of different members of society within Dublin. And this one gets more symbolic. And this is actually a really good progression from his first book to this one. It is telling the story of a coming of age, of growing up and wrestling with who he is and who he wants to be. It is set in like a stodgy Catholic boys' school, that kind of setting that is in so many novels, it feels like lately. But just like wrestling with those kind of things, and then going home on vacation, and how does he fit in with the learning and the things that have happened away versus his home life, and reconciling that, and then deciding, is he getting an actual call to brotherhood and to entering the life of the church and listening to the sermons and all this kind of things. Now, James Joyce is sometimes, when I talk to people about it, I always have gotten the feeling that he's very, very intellectual and kind of heady. I had to multiple times look up words literally in the dictionary, and I don't know if it will show well on here, but like the whole like several pages of the book, these are all footnotes, and it's set in Ireland, and there's a lot of Irish slang or words that I didn't know what they were for sure, but it's in the footnotes. So I started like holding, one thumb on the footnotes and going back and forth and reading these hundreds of footnotes. And that was really important and turned out to be, make it a lot more enjoyable. Plus I got to learn a lot of things that I didn't know before, and I was kind of sharing some of those with my husband. So it is, in that sense, a little bit of work. Just wanted to share that if you're picking it up. But it was like a little bit like entering the world of Shakespeare, right? Once you start thinking along those terms about how he's writing and the Irish language, and you start recognizing some of the things that repeat themselves, and you start thinking and understanding that and following along, even though that's not normally how you would say it in everyday language. And I found it beautiful. I really was in the mood for classics this month. I was in the mood for wrestling with that and thinking about that and learning things. And the story itself is a beautiful story about struggling with coming to terms with, who am I? What is my identity? What do I want to live into? And it was actually a very satisfying ending, I thought, to this book. And I am really interested in picking up his big, thick symbolism struggle bus book that a lot of people do think is kind of his pinnacle of Ulysses. So I will get to that probably next year in 2024, but it was a great ride to read this. Finally, I listened to Daniel Keyes' Flowers for Algernon on audiobook, and I was just enthralled from the very beginning. It is told as reports that are diary style from a man who is 32, but he has been mentally handicapped his whole life. And he is telling his story about his life, how he gets by. He gets chosen to be part of an experiment to try to make him smarter. And so he's documenting how he feels, what he's thinking, what he's experiencing, how he's being treated. And it is so just thought-provoking about the concepts even of intelligence, the concept even of how do relationships develop because of your intelligence level. How do we pick people to hang out with that are within our realm? How do we actually treat people who are below us in intelligence, and how do we treat people who are more intelligent? How do we hide that thing where we're starting to feel like we don't understand what that person's saying, or we're starting to feel inferior, or and are these things good or right or proper, or how do you make sense of them or put them into the place of the world? And Algernon is the lab rat that they have been running these experiments on, and Charlie, our main protagonist, actually forms a relationship with Algernon and also witnesses all the things that he's going through, and knows that that's really linked to him as well. And it was just gripping. I just didn't want to stop listening to it. I loved how at the beginning of the novel, the action, because he's the one reporting, it was very simple, basic, what is that called? Like really literal thinking. That's what I'm looking for. It was very literal thinking. And then you actually recognize the development of his thinking throughout the book. 5 stars. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I have heard some people that have really struggled with this, but if this sounds kind of interesting, what I'm saying, check it out, because I don't think it's even that long of a book overall. I think the audio book was 8 or 9 hours, so it was very interesting and intriguing. So those are 4 classics that I have read in the past month. What have you been reading? Have you read any of these? What do you think about them? It's okay to totally disagree with me. I'm down with that, especially classics. They seem like they are really, kind of all over the board with who really connects with them and jazzes with them. And so, that's one good thing about BookTube, is we keep on figuring out other things that will work for us. So I hope maybe you've discovered one of those things this day for you. And have a great summer and happy reading. And we're almost into the fall, y'all. Get ready for the October and spooky reads. Take care.